Pottery is the ceramic material which makes up pottery wares, of which major types include earthenware, stoneware and porcelain. The place where such wares are made is also called a pottery. Pottery also refers to the art or craft of a potter or the manufacture of pottery. A dictionary definition is simply objects of fired clays. The definition of pottery used by the American Society for Testing and Materials is all fired ceramic wares that contain clay when formed, except technical, structural, and refractory products. Pottery originated before the Neolithic period, with ceramic objects like the gravity urn culture or Venus of Dolna Vestan ice figurine discovered in the Czech Republic date back to 29,000–25,000 BC, and pottery vessels that were discovered in Jiangxi, China, which date back to 18,000 BC. Early Neolithic pottery have been found in places such as Doman, Japan, the Russian Far East, Sub-Saharan Africa and South America. Pottery is made by forming a clay body into objects of a required shape and heating them to high temperatures in a kiln which removes all the water from the clay, which induces reactions that lead to permanent changes including increasing their strength and hardening and setting their shape. A clay body can be decorated before or after firing. Prior to some shaping processes, clay must be prepared. Kneading helps to ensure an even moisture content throughout the body. Air trapped within the clay body needs to be removed. This is called deaering and can be accomplished by a machine called a vacuum pug or manually by wedging. Wedging can also help produce an even moisture content. Once a clay body has been kneaded and deared or wedged, it is shaped by a variety of techniques. After shaping, it is dried and then fired. Production stages. Clayware takes on varying physical characteristics during the making of pottery. Greenware refers to unfired objects at sufficient moisture content. Bodies at this stage are in their most plastic form. Leather hard refers to a clay body that has been dried partially. At this stage, the clay object has approximately 15% moisture content. Clay bodies at this stage are very firm and only slightly pliable. Trimming and handle attachment often occurs at the leather-hard state. Bone dry refers to clay bodies when they reach a moisture content at or near 0%. It is now ready to be bisque-fired. Bisque refers to the clay after the object is shaped to the desired form and fired in the kiln for the first time, known as bisque-fired or biscuit-fired. This firing changes the clay body in several ways. Mineral components of the clay body will undergo chemical changes that will change the color of the clay. Glaze fired is the final stage of some pottery making. A glaze may be applied to the bisque form and the object can be decorated in several ways. After this, the object is glazed fired, which causes the glaze material to melt, then adhere to the object. The glaze firing will also harden the body still more as chemical processes can continue to occur in the body. Glaze bodies and mineral contents. There are several materials that are referred to as clay. The properties of the clays differ, including plasticity, the malleability of the body, the extent to which they will absorb water after firing, and shrinkage, the extent of reduction in size of a body as water is removed. Different clay bodies also differ in the way in which they respond when fired in the kiln. A clay body can be decorated before or after firing. Prior to some shaping processes, clay must be prepared. Each of these different clays are composed of different types and amounts of minerals that determine the characteristics of resulting pottery. There can be regional variations in the properties of raw materials used for the production of pottery, and this can lead to wares that are unique in character to a locality. It is common for clays and other materials to be mixed to produce clay bodies suited to specific purposes. A common component of clay bodies is the mineral kaolinite. Other mineral compounds in the clay may act as fluxes which lower the vitrification temperature of bodies. Following is a list of different types of clay used for pottery. Kaolin is sometimes referred to as China clay because it was first used in China. Used for porcelain, ball clay, an extremely plastic, fine-grained sedimentary clay, which may contain some organic matter. Small amounts can be added to porcelain to increase plasticity. Fire clay, a clay having a slightly lower percentage of fluxes than kaolin, but usually quite plastic. It is a highly heat-resistant form of clay which can be combined with other clays to increase the firing temperature and may be used as an ingredient to make stoneware-type bodies. Stoneware clay suitable for creating stoneware. This clay has many of the characteristics between fire clay and ball clay, having finer grain, like ball clay, but is more heat-resistant like fire clays. Common red clay and shale clay have vegetable and ferric oxide impurities which make them useful for bricks, but are generally unsatisfactory for pottery except under special conditions of a particular deposit. Bentonite, an extremely plastic clay which can be added in small quantities to short clay to increase the plasticity. Methods of shaping. Pottery can be shaped by a range of methods that include hand building. This is the earliest forming method. Wares can be constructed by hand from coils of clay, combining flat slabs of clay, or pinching solid balls of clay, or some combination of these. Parts of hand-built vessels are often joined together with the aid of slip, an aqueous suspension of clay body in water. A clay body can be decorated before or after firing. Prior to some shaping processes, clay must be prepared, such as tablewares, although some studio potters find hand-building more conducive to create one-of-a-kind works of art. The potter's wheel. In a process called throwing, a ball of clay is placed in the center of a turntable, called the wheel head, which the potter rotates with a stick, with foot power or with a variable speed electric motor. During the process of throwing, the wheel rotates while the solid ball of soft clay is pressed, squeezed and pulled gently upwards and outwards into a hollow shape. The first step of pressing the rough ball of clay downward and inward into perfect rotational symmetry is called centering the clay, a most important skill to master before the next steps: opening, flooring, throwing or pulling, and trimming or turning. Considerable skill and experience are required to throw pots of an acceptable standard, and while the ware may have high artistic merit, the reproducibility of the method is poor. Because of its inherent limitations, throwing can only be used to create wares with radial symmetry on a vertical axis. These can then be altered by impressing, bulging, carving, fluting, and incising. In addition to the potter's hands, these techniques can use tools, including paddles, anvils and ribs, and those specifically for cutting or piercing such as knives, fluting tools and wires. Thrown pieces can be further modified by the attachment of handles, lids, feet and spouts. Granulate pressing. As the name suggests, this is the operation of shaping pottery by pressing clay in a semi-dry and granulated condition in a mold. The clay is pressed into the mold by a porous die through which water is pumped at high pressure. The granulated clay is prepared by spray drying to produce a fine and free-flowing material having a moisture content of between about 5 and 6%. Granulate pressing, also known as dust pressing, is widely used in the manufacture of ceramic tiles and, increasingly, of plates. Injection molding. This is a shape-forming process adapted for the tableware industry from the method long established for the forming of thermoplastic and some metal components. It has been called porcelain injection molding, or PIM, suited to the mass production of complex-shaped articles. One significant advantage of the technique is that it allows the production of a cup, including the handle, in a single process, and thereby eliminates the handle fixing operation and produces a stronger bond between cup and handle. The feed to the mold die is a mix of approximately 50 to 60% unfired body in powder form, together with 40 to 50% organic additives composed of binders, lubricants and plasticizers. The technique is not as widely used as other shaping methods. Jiggering and jollying. These operations are carried out on the potter's wheel and allow the time taken to bring wares to a standardized form to be reduced. Jiggering is the operation of bringing a shaped tool into contact with the plastic clay of a piece under construction, the piece itself being set on a rotating plaster mold on the wheel. The jigger tool shapes one face while the mold shapes the other. Jiggering is used only in the production of flatwares, such as plates, but a similar operation, jollying, is used in the production of hollowwares such as cups. Jiggering and jollying have been used in the production of pottery since at least the 18th century. In large-scale factory production, jiggering and jollying are usually automated, which allows the operations to be carried out by semi-skilled labor. Roller head machine. This machine is for shaping wares on a rotating mold, as in jiggering and jollying, but with a rotary shaping tool replacing the fixed profile. The rotary shaping tool is a shallow cone having the same diameter as the ware being formed and shaped to the desired form of the back of the article being made. Wares may in this way be shaped, using relatively unskilled labor, in one operation at a rate of about 12 pieces per minute, though this varies with the size of the articles being produced. Developed in the UK just after World War II by the company Service Engineers, roller heads were quickly adopted by manufacturers around the world. They remain the dominant method for producing flatware. Pressure casting. Specially developed polymeric materials allow a mold to be subject to application external pressures of up to 4.0 MPa, so much higher than slip casting in plaster molds where the capillary forces correspond to a pressure of around 0.1–0.2 megapascals. The high pressure leads to much faster casting rates and, hence, faster production cycles. Furthermore, the application of high-pressure air through the polymeric molds upon demolding the cast means a new casting cycle can be started immediately in the same mold. Unlike plaster molds which require lengthy drying times, the polymeric materials have much greater durability than plaster and, therefore, it is possible to achieve shaped products with better dimensional tolerances and much longer mold life. Pressure casting was developed in the 1970s for the production of sanitary ware, although, more recently, it has been applied to tableware. Ram pressing. This is used to shape ware by pressing a bat of prepared clay body into a required shape between two porous molding plates. After pressing, compressed air is blown through the porous mold plates to release the shaped wares. Slip casting. The ideally suited to the making of wares that cannot be formed by other methods of shaping. A slip, made by mixing clay body with water, is poured into a highly absorbent plaster mold. Water from the slip is absorbed into the mold, leaving a layer of clay body covering its internal surfaces and taking its internal shape. Excess slip is poured out of the mold, which is then split open and the molded object removed. Decorating and glazing. Pottery may be decorated in many different ways. Some decoration can be done before or after the firing. Decoration painting has been used since early prehistoric times, and can be very elaborate. The painting is often applied to pottery that has been fired once, and may then be overlaid with a glaze afterwards. Many pigments change color when fired, and the painter must allow for this. Ceramic glaze, perhaps the most common form of decoration, that also serves as protection to the pottery. By being tougher and keeping liquid from penetrating the pottery, glaze may be clear, especially over painting, or colored and opaque. There is more detail in the section below. Carving. Pottery vessels may be decorated by shallow carving of the clay body, typically with a knife or similar instrument used on the wheel. This is common in Chinese porcelain of the classic periods. Burnishing. The surface of pottery wares may be burnished prior to firing by rubbing with a suitable instrument of wood, steel or stone to produce a polished finish that survives firing. It is possible to produce very highly polished wares when fine clays are used or when the polishing is carried out on wares that have been partially dried and contain little water. Though wares in this condition are extremely fragile and the risk of breakage is high, additives can be worked into the clay body prior to forming, to produce desired effects in the fired wares. Coarse additives such as sand and grog are sometimes used to give the final product a required texture. Contrasting, colored clays and grogs are sometimes used to produce patterns in the finished wares. Colorants, usually metal oxides and carbonates, are added singly or in combination to achieve a desired color. Combustible particles can be mixed with the body or pressed into the surface to produce texture. Lithography, also called litho, although the alternative names of transfer print or decal are also common. These are used to apply designs to articles. The litho comprises 3 layers. The color, or image, layer, which comprises the decorative design. The cover coat, a clear protective layer, which may incorporate a low-melting glass, and the backing paper on which the design is printed by screen printing or lithography. There are various methods of transferring the design while removing the backing paper, some of which are suited to machine application. Banding is the application by hand or by machine of a band of color to the edge of a plate or cup, also known as lining. This operation is often carried out on a potter's wheel. Agateware is named after its resemblance to the quartz mineral agate, which has bands or layers of color that are blended together. Agatewares are made by blending clays of differing colors together but not mixing them to the extent that they lose their individual identities. The wares have a distinctive veined or mottled appearance. The term agateware is used to describe such wares in the United Kingdom. In Japan, the term neriage is used, and in China, where such things have been made since at least the Tang dynasty, they are called marbled wares. Great care is required in the selection of clays to be used for making agatewares, as the clays used must have matching thermal movement characteristics. Engobe. This is a clay slip that is used to coat the surface of pottery, usually before firing. Its purpose is often decorative, though it can also be used to mask undesirable features in the clay to which it is applied. Engobe slip may be applied by painting or by dipping to provide a uniform, smooth coating. Engobe has been used by potters from prehistoric times until the present day and is sometimes combined with esgraffito decoration, where a layer of engobe is scratched through to reveal the color of the underlying clay. With care it is possible to apply a second coat of engobe of a different color to the first and to incise decoration through the second coat to expose the color of the underlying coat. Engobes used in this way often contain substantial amounts of silica, sometimes approaching the composition of a glaze. Gold. Decoration with gold is used on some high-quality ware. Different methods exist for its application, including best gold, a suspension of gold powder in essential oils mixed with a flux and a mercury salt extended. This can be applied by a painting technique. From the kiln, the decoration is dull and requires burnishing to reveal the full color. Acid gold, a form of gold decoration developed in the early 1860s at the English factory of Mintons Limited, Stoke-on-Trent. The glazed surface is etched with diluted hydrofluoric acid prior to application of the gold. The process demands great skill and is used for the decoration only of ware of the highest class. Bright gold consists of a solution of gold sulfurycyanate together with other metal resonates and a flux. The name derives from the appearance of the decoration immediately after removal from the kiln, as it requires no burnishing. Muscle gold, an old method of gold decoration. It was made by rubbing together gold leaf, sugar and salt, followed by washing to remove solubles. Glaze is a glassy coating on pottery, the primary purposes of which are decoration and protection. One important use of glaze is to render porous pottery vessels impermeable to water and other liquids. Glaze may be applied by dusting the unfired composition over the ware or by spraying, dipping, trailing or brushing on a thin slurry composed of the unfired glaze and water. The color of a glaze after it has been fired may be significantly different from before firing. To prevent glazed wares sticking to kiln furniture during firing, either a small part of the object being fired is left unglazed or, alternatively, special refractory spurs are used as supports. These are removed and discarded after the firing. Some specialized glazing techniques include salt glazing, where common salt is introduced to the kiln during the firing process. The high temperatures cause the salt to volatilize, depositing it on the surface of the ware to react with the body to form a sodium aluminosilicate glaze. In the 17th and 18th centuries, salt glazing was used in the manufacture of domestic pottery. Now, except for use by some studio potters, the process is obsolete. The last large-scale application before its demise in the face of environmental clean air restrictions was in the production of salt-glazed sewer pipes. Ash glazing. Ash from the combustion of plant matter has been used as the flux component of glazes. The source of the ash was generally the combustion waste from the fueling of kilns, although the potential of ash derived from arable crop wastes has been investigated. Ash glazes are of historical interest in the Far East, although there are reports of small-scale use in other locations such as the Catawba Valley pottery in the United States. They are now limited to small numbers of studio potters who value the unpredictability arising from the variable nature of the raw material. Underglaze decoration. Underglaze may be applied by brushstrokes, airbrush, or by pouring the underglaze into the mold, covering the inside, creating a swirling effect. Then the mold is filled with slip. In glaze decoration. On glaze decoration, enamel,